the historical development of the Indian Constitution, and my wish is to complete within an hour. I think it would be so hard to complete, but I will try to make it. So, are you people ready? It's my simple request you to please note it down. This session is for mains examination as well pre-examination. So, as you need, you may write. So, I am going to start right now. So, you know, when we talk about the historical development of the Indian Constitution, it starts with the Regulating Act directly, because that was the decision by which British Parliament first time intervened into that matter. So, Regulating Act 1773 is of great constitutional importance. You know, it was passed by Lord North's government. There was the government of Lord North. When we talk about the Lord North, it means the Prime Minister of the Britain was Lord North, as there was the parliamentary system. So definitely it is an act which definitely recognizes the political functions of the company. When we talk about the political functions, what is real meaning of political function? When we say that that was political function, it always reflects law-making process. Law-making process. As the government of Britain gave directly monopoly right to British East India Company, but later on in 1765, we are talking about 1765, company got Diwani rights from Mughal Emperor as well as the Nawab of Awadh. Later, the British government thought that it would be so necessary that company would rule as per as the British government. So that was the need. It asserted for the first time the rights of the parliament to dictate the form of the government, which was considered till then the private possession of the company. It was the first of a long series of parliamentary statutes that altered the form of the government in India. The act provided the basis of Anglo-India Constitution. That was the basis of Anglo-India Constitution. Why I am saying? Because you know, when we are talking about 18th century, so in 18th century we got some special privilege in Bengal presidency's area, in Madras presidency, in Bombay presidency. Except all those presidencies, there were Indian rule. But as you know, the British got Diwani rights and Nizamat rights in 1765. So some things were changed that time. So we talk about the circumstances for the enactment of the act at that time. What were the circumstances? Why was the need to intervene into Indian affairs like the company's affair? So we are talking about circumstances. Circumstances for what? For the enactment. For enactment of the act. I am talking about the Regulating Act. So that was the need. So what were the circumstances that time? Could you tell it, please? Here we are discussing some of the important causes. There were many causes, many circumstances were there which necessitated the passing of the Regulating Act by the British Parliament. Some circumstances, some causes were so important. So we are going to discuss about all those important matters, all those important causes. First was agitation for parliamentary control over Indian affairs. First was agitation Agitation for what? Agitation for parliamentary control. For parliamentary control over Indian affairs. Over Indian affairs. That was the first reason. When we talk about Indian affairs, it means Indo-British affairs as well as Indian, real Indian affairs. Because some traders were there, some bureaucrats regarding court of directors, So many people were there. So when we talk about Indian affairs, both the things are there. So whatever rights the company had acquired till 1694, from, as you know, 1600, that company got monopoly rights to trade in East. So were granted by the crown through royal charters. It enjoyed the exclusive right of trading with India. I am talking about exclusive. It means monopoly rights. Monopoly rights. Monopoly word determined the economic status, that only one company would trade in East, like in India. So that was the monopoly right, or you can say exclusive right to trade in India. The monopolistic rights of the company gave rise to jealousy. Jealousy to whom? Jealousy and resentment to public. It meant there were many people of companies, of other companies, had wished to trade in India, but as you know, only British East India Company was granted that permission. So demand for free trade became so strong that the parliament, by an act, so that was the important thing. So it was decided to revoke the monopoly and allow every British. So it was allowed. What allowed? Allowed every British subject. Every British subject. What was allowed? Subject to trade in the East. To trade in the East. That was allowed at that time. The trade in the East. Till prohibited by a parliamentary law. The company, however, averted the danger of obliging British government with enormous loans. The move for free trade was shelved for some time, not without making it clear that the independence of the company was subordinate to the supremacy of the parliament. The only, the company, what the company was subordinated, because the company was the only body in India regulating Diwani rights, the Nizamat rights, right? Diwani to collect tax and Nizamin to control the criminal affairs in India. So that was the thing happening in India, and British company, as you know, the full form of East India Company was the Company of Merchants of London trading to East Indies. That was the real and complete name of East India Company. So that was decided at that time, that how the British Parliament would make law. So 3 British merchants continued to demand Parliament intervention in the affairs of the company. The active and direct control of the British Parliament over Indian affairs began from 1773 with the enactment of the Regulating Act. That was the thing, that the active and direct control of the British Parliament. So there was a question, which was the first act where British Parliament directly intervened into British Indian affairs. That was the Regulating Act. So the active and direct control of the British Parliament over Indian affairs began from 1773 with the enactment of Regulating Act. After regulating this act, British company got many controlled rights, many controlled duties. So that was the thing. Now we talk about the second thing which had to happen, which happened also. That was the constitutional difficulties. We talk about the constitutional difficulties. When we say constitutional difficulties, so there was something that there was a Bengal presidency, Madras presidency, and Bombay presidency. So that was the difficulty of that time. These different presidencies were ruled by the governor appointed by the company, but sometimes they had contradiction when they applied law. So there was not only the difficulty to make law, but also to consider and recognize Indian kingdoms, Indian families. So sometimes they had a different ideology, and sometimes they have no single authority to control, to manage all law by single body. That was the thing. So the battles of Plassey, the battle of Plassey, everyone knows. Battle of Plassey was fought in year 1757. That was the first battle when company defeated 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻, like 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻 in 1757, and the battle of Buxar. Battle of Buxar fought in year 1764. So after losing two battles, Indian power remained so weak, and British companies, like many more people were there. The British company tried to control all major affairs. Sorry. So first was Diwani, to collect right and manage civil affairs, and to control Nizamat to control criminal affairs. That were the things at that time. So these two battles respectively established the supremacy of the company over Bengal, right? Bengal, and it was included by Bihar and Odisha also. So you may say that company got rights over Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. That was the thing. A big chunk of Indian territory came under the East India Company. Big chunk. The Bengal was consisted of contemporary West Bengal, Bangladesh, some part of Assam, some part of Bihar, some part of Odisha, and some part of Uttar Pradesh also. That was the big chunk of territory that time. So sometimes company got possession. The company acquired the Diwani to collect the tax and manage civil affairs, and Nizamat, the rights to administer criminal justice, and became territorial power. Like its quasi-sovereign position created a constitutional difficulties. Like the direct control was under the company, and indirectly there were some Indian emperors, Indian rulers, so there was contradiction in terms of collecting the taxes and to control the criminal affairs also, because in Mughal tradition the criminal laws were totally different from British laws. So that was the need of the time. The English constitution did not permit anybody to possess territory except in the name of the crown. Hence the British public insisted on the taking over the company's territories by the crown. So that was the thing. The British public insisted on the taking over the company's territory by the crown. So that was the thing that time. So many factors were there, as there was company was facing at time. So there was a need to control the British company and as well as the Indian affairs also. So, there were many circumstances. Those students who are preparing for mains, they may write, they may note it down, because in long term, it is so necessary to note it down. So, but such a proposition gives rise to another knot problem, which was the knotty problem. While the company could continue to act in the company, act in the capacity of the Diwan of the Mughal. Who was the Diwan? The officer in charge. So Mughal emperor, the crown could not take that subordinate role upon himself. Second, direct control of the crown over the provinces of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa was likely to displease the Mughal emperor. Why to displease the Mughal emperor? But there was a single authority controlling Indian affairs, Indian territory. That was the Mughal emperor. I know that was the symbolically present there. The Shah Alam II. Shah Alam II was the emperor of that dynasty at that time, who ruled from 1759 to 1806. So that was the position. One side, crown was trying to control the British company, and company was trying to control Indian land, Indian affairs. Another time, another system was that Mughal emperor having control over Indian affairs indirectly, because the Mughal emperor granted those Diwani and Nizamat rights. So that was the problem at that phase. So you may say the Marathas and other native Rajas, they were also there. Marathas, Marathas were really great power, but only two powers were there, Marathas and Britishers. Mainly two powers were there. So thirdly, right to property was considered to be legitimate and sacred in England in the 18th century. Right to property was considered to be legitimate and sacred in England in the 18th century. And Indian territories were in no way different from the private property of the company. Hence, state control over the Indian territories was considered repugnant to the principle of private property. Yet, leaving the company free of state control was also not advisable, because companies' misrule in India was likely to bring a bad name to Great Britain. As company was ruling in India, as acting in India, so there was a position of defaming the British crown. So they were also aware, and you may say that they were more cautious about their name. So keeping the aforesaid difficulties, right, the parliament decide to let the company keep its territorial gains, but to act as agent of the British control. So company had to rule as an agent of the crown or British government, you may say. So that was the thing. And now we will talk about another circumstance. What was the another cause? That was the difficulty of bribe, private trade and gifts. Bribe, taking bribe is illegal in India. Bribe, private. What private? Private trade, because some officials of company was trading individually except the company. And gifts, they also accepted gifts in terms of rupees and gold and gems. So that was also problem. Company was losing the profit, and the officials of the company, they became so rich. So that was the problem. The crown goods were either totally exempted from paying local taxes, or were charged only token excise duties. Only token excise duty. Whereas other people had to pay full excise duty. That was the thing. The servants of the company began to abuse their privileges, because they also had to pay regular taxes. So that was the problem at that time. So they earned a fortune for themselves by allowing the goods of Indian trade to pass without paying any tax whatsoever. They also began to accept presents from Indian businessmen and other civilians and kings and rulers in return for favors done to them. Right? So they filled their pockets with ill-gotten wealth. When they returned to England with their booty, they lived luxuriously like Indian Nawabs. So that was the problem at that time. Their fat things enabled them to capture parliamentary seats and to, like abhi bhi hota hai, that happen in that, as you earn some black money in form of passing some gifts, some special privilege to other people, and later on, after losing that job, you always try to become a leader or something like that. So that was the thing. So, and to exempt, and we talk about the influence of the policies of the British government. Influence of the policies of the British government. According to Macaulay, the human mind was horror struck at the way in which they had got the money and the way they spent it. Natural, everybody in England grew jealous of them and began to agitate from immediate state control over companies' affairs, because there was also fear in the heart of the British people, British officials, and they were also jealous from these people, these Indian Nawabs residing in luxuriously in Britain. So that was the thing. Fourth point, the pitiable condition of the people of Bengal. The pitiable condition of the people of Bengal. Of the Bengal. Note it down, please. Bengal. And always consider, when we talk about Bengal in 18th century, so there were Orissa, there were some parts of Bihar, some parts of Uttar Pradesh, some parts of Assam, and complete Bangladesh. So that was a big chunk of territory. The pitiable condition of Bengal, the people of Bengal, the system of double government. When we talk about double government, what is exact mean of this double government? Double government means directly company got the privilege, got right to collect tax, but at same time British ruler were subordinate to Indian Basha or Indian Raja. Another time the British authorities had to control Nizamat directly, but They had no regular service persons, no regular uh, sepoys in terms of they needed. So they allowed and they subletted these things to the Nawab of Awadh and you can say the Indian people, that I am the direct power and you collect the taxes, you regulate the criminal affairs and criminal affairs directly, but indirectly we are the king, we are the household in charge of these conditions. So this was the thing which were happening. So the system of dual government in Bengal to a reign of corruption and depression, because corruption and depression was like the coin side of each other. So in the like we are talking about in the province, Bengal province, so nobody cared for the welfare of the people, because British government, British company was to gain more and more profit in India. They had nothing to do with Indian people in terms of welfare things I am talking about. So that was the thing. So nobody cared for the welfare of the people. If an aggrieved person approached the officers of the Nawab with the complaint, he was told that the Nawab was helpless because Nawab was under the company's rule and that the real power was vested in the company. That was the thing. In the same person appealed to the good officers of the company, he was put off with the excuse that the administrative power lay with the Nawab and that the company had nothing to do. Company was nowhere in the picture, because a layman believed in Indian administration, like Mughal Basha were there, Nawabs were there. So a layman and some businessmen, they believed in real Indian administration, as well as there was a parallel government, British government. So that person was so confused and so you may say the helpless person. So nowhere in the picture. So in the double government, the magistracy, the police, the revenue officials began diverse bodies working upon different systems with conflicting interests under two common head. With each other in misgovernment, there was no positive law and there was very little justice in the country. Little justice, you may say that there was some controlling power. So they earned a fortune for themselves by allowing the goods of Indian traders. That was the thing happening in that time. So no one was caring for. So no one was in real picture. Neither the Nawab, nor the company. As told above, the administration of the Englishman of the Nawabs was badly corrupt. The sufferings of the people were aggravated by the famine that broke out in 1770. There was a famine in that phase. Famine, the lack of food, lack of water, everything, lack of cattle, fodders. So the famine reduced the population of Bengal because many people died in that famine by 1/5. The starving people migrated to other provinces, which meant a huge loss of revenue to the company. The company in its turn followed the most cruel policy as raising their prices, the daily necessities and enhancing taxes. So there was a problem. So no one was caring for that thing. So you may say there was a condition where all persons were responsible, all the persons of companies were responsible, but no one was taking care of Indian people. So that was the thing happening in Bengal. So piteous cry of famine stricken Bengal reached the British people and rose their sympathies. The public opinion in England swung in favor of a thorough investigation into the case of the company. So that was the thing happened, right? Now I will talk about the defeat of the company. Defeat of the company. So fifth point is defeat. Defeat of the company. In 1769, the company suffered an inglorious defeat in the hands of Hyder Ali. When we are talking about 1769, the first battle of Mysore was fought in that time, and Hyder Ali was the ruler of the Mysore, right? So in first phase of that battle, company was defeated, and you know all the policies, all the strategies made by the company was totally failed. That was the thing happened there. So his crown, his own things were demolished. So when this news reached England, the British government as well as the public was greatly shocked how this company was defeated, because company had wealth and naval power and army and military. So how the company lose these things? So England took defeat as a severe blow to her prestige, right? So why there was prestige involved? Because they were aware and they were cautious that the name of companies would not defame. So we talk about the next point, the apprehensions about the failure of the company. What were the apprehensions? We'll talk about when the 1765 the company acquired the Diwan of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. Then did happen. So apprehensions. What apprehensions? Apprehensions of about the failure. About the failure. What happened? Failure of the company. What apprehensions? When we talk about apprehensions, so there was a Diwani right granted by Mughal emperor at that time. So directors knew no bounds. So that the thing, Clive speculated that company's gross income was the land alone would touch the figure of pound 5 lakhs at that time. 5 lakhs was so, huge amount, 50 lakhs, sorry. Right? So, while its net profit would not be less than, I think, pound, that was the pound sterling 16 lakh 50,000. So, that was encouraged by Clive's report. The directors raised the dividends from 6% to 10% because there was a chance to grow more and more, because they got the passive income by imposing some taxes on Indian farmers, Indian merchants, as previously those taxes were levied by the officials of Bengal. But directly by Diwani rights, company was the Nawab of Bengal. As the company got Diwani rights, so that company became the Nawab of Bengal. That was the thing. And many more times this question was when the company became the Nawab of Bengal. So that was the thing, how the company got privilege, how the company was granted to collect the taxes. So these terminology you must note it down. So the directors raised the dividends from 6% to 10% as soon as after 21 to 22%. So demand for company shares went up suddenly. That was the thing, how the British Crown and ministers and other officials of the company, they were shocked. But as soon as the rumor went around that it was all a mischievous deception and that the company was heading towards bankruptcy. That was the thing. The company was getting so much profit and tending towards bankruptcy. That was so shocking news for Britishers. So the shareholder in sheer fright began to demand quick action by the parliament to safeguard their interest. That was the thing which happened. Now we talk about the evils of double government. Double government. Two governments were there. Double governments mean one was Mughal emperor, another was British company, East India Company. So there were two governments were there. So dual control over the three provinces of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa wrecked the economic life of the people. Unnatural divisions of the administration into two halves produced confusion, chaos and corruption. The servants of the company behaved in the most irresponsible manner. The divided and complicated authority of dual government roads gave rise to operation and intrigues unknown in any other period. That was the thing which was said by many more persons, right? So many more intellectuals, they wrote that it must give pain to Englishmen that since the accession of the Diwani of the company, that was the thing happened in terms of evil of dual government. So the condition of the people of the country had been worse than it was before. So no civilized government ever existed on the face of this earth, because which was more corrupt, more perfidious and more rapacious than the government of East India Company from 1765 to 1772, because British East India Company was a trading company, not a welfare institution. So no one should hope that this company would launch some welfare policies for Indian people. That was not to happen. So the pathetic condition of the Indians under the company's rule naturally drew that the parliament, by an act passed in 1767, required the company to pay an annual sum of rupees 4,000 sterling for its monopolistic privileges. The company continued to pay this huge sum till 1772, after which it failed to pay because of its weak financial position. Non-payment of this annual sum gave an excuse to the parliament to intervene in the affairs of the company, and the company's officials, they became so rich. So those were the things which created danger position. So another point was the company's request for loan. Company's request for the loan. As the company got all privileges and again requesting for the loan, that was the huge condition. So when the company was driven to the financial crisis, it approached the British government for a loan. The British government was already on the lookout for such an excuse to probe into the company's affairs. Thus, the company's application for a loan on 1 million led to the parliamentary intervention. That was also the point to intervene into that matter. So that was the thing happened. Those were there were some causes which took place. Now we'll talk about the preamble of the act. The preamble of the act. The preamble of the constitution you always read, but there is also a preamble of the act. Preamble of the act. The preamble of the act. Whereas the several powers and authorities granted by charters of the United Company of Merchants of England trading to East Indies have been found by experience not to have sufficient force and efficiency to prevent various abuse which have prevailed in the government and administration of the affairs of the said United Company. So those were the things which had to happen, as well as home as in India to the manifest injury of the public credit and of the commercial interest of that company, and it has therefore become high expedient that certain further regulations better adapted to present circumstances and conditions should be provided and established. And whereas the electing and the choosing of the directors of that company every year in such a manner as at present prescribed by the charter has not answered. What not answered? Answered the good purpose intent thereby, but of the contrary by limiting the duration of the office so short a time evidently tends so weaken the authority of the court directors. May it therefore please be enacted. That was something to describe. So main provision, what were the main provisions of the regulating act? We talk about the main provisions of main provisions. There were many provisions, but main provisions. What were the main provisions? Previous experiences provided these things. So, main provisions we talk about, main provisions of the regulating act. How many provisions were there? So first was subordination of Bombay and Madras to Bengal. Subordination of Bombay. Bombay was under the control of Portuguese power, but in 1661, Catherine Braganza, Princess of the Portugal, married to the Prince of England and gifted Bombay to that King of England as dowry, and Madras to Bengal. So there was some contradiction into Bengal. Bengal became supreme power among three presidencies because the first administration was established in Calcutta. There was a passage through water. There were some merchants places, as you know, Kothi and some go down There were some army also. So Bengal always remained the key to success for Britishers. They always got money from Calcutta, as you know, the passive income by collecting taxes. So uh, prior to the enactment of 1773, the three governments of the presidencies of Madras, Bombay and Bengal was there. You know, they were separated and independent. They were separated in separate in form of making law. They always had contradictions when they make law, because the India was divided into many other political powers, and every political power has its own separate relation with Britishers. So there were some contradictions. So you know, some they were separated from and independent of one another. Each acted on its own in matters on making war and peace and making laws. The company put too much inconvenience because of their unregulated actions. There was no uniform policy. There was no uniform policy to apply, because no uniform code, no uniform law was there. So that was the problem. You know, there was no uniform policy and coordination of work. The governor of each presidency had direct dealings with the court of directors. The Regulating Act declared that the governors of Madras and Bombay would be subordinate to Governor General of Bengal. When we say the governor of presidency, what is its mean? What is it mean? So mean is, if there is governor, he had to perform two duties. That was to protect and provide British some protection to Britishers, and to collect taxes. There was only two things to perform by this governor, and they had separate relations with Indians, king and court of directors. So that was a real need of the time to make uniform court. So the governor of Bengal became the governor of Bengal became the Governor General of Bengal. Governor General of Bengal. Right? It means his position was so strong. He was promoted. But here you must consider the Governor of Bengal and Governor General of Bengal are two things. While that person would perform in terms of collecting tax, in terms of making law, that person would act as the governor. But in terms of supervise the Bombay and Madras, that person would act as the Governor General of Bengal. So you must note it down, right? That was the thing. So Governor General was authorized to superintend and control the governments of Bombay and Madras. The presidency governments were instructed not to declare war or make peace or conclude treaties with Indian powers without the previous sanction of the governors general of the Bengal or the company's directors. You know, the company was controlled by the court of directors. So there was also a team, company's directors. So, and those companies directors were residing in England. So unless compelling circumstances demanded immediate action. The provision laid the foundation of unitary type of government in British India. So that provision laid the foundation of the unity type of the government. What is the what is the real exact meaning of unity type of government? In unity type of government, there is one power to make law. No division of power was there, as India has the federal system. So state and center, they both has power to make law for their own. So, but in unitary type of government, there is only one central power would make law for control. So we are talking about the things. So the provision laid the foundation of a unity type of government in British India. The Governor General was also given the power to suspend the presidency governors, their councils, if they need by. There was also a council to help the governor. That was the need of the time. So, separation was there. And another point was establishment of the Council of Governor General. Second point, establishment of what? Establishment of the council council for what? For whom? Council of Governor General. Because if you compare this body to present parliamentary system, you get there were some persons were authorized to make law for British India. As you know, the parliament of our country make law for India. So where there is a president, there is 𝐼𝐸𝐽𝐵, Lok Sabha, Council of State and lower house. And that time, these four people of the council, including Governor General, would make law for India, would make law for Bengal. That was the thing, that was the model of parliamentary system. So the act made provision for the council of 4 members. There would be 4 members in council, plus 1 Governor General. This body will perform as the parliamentary body. Right now we have the parliamentary system adopted from Britishers. So that was the thing. So 3 councillors were to hold office for 5 years and could be removed by 1 year. So there were 4 council members, right? Among 4, 3 councillors were to hold office for 5 years and could be removed by the British King or the recommendation of the directors. But one last member of council was not given this authority, right? Later, all those 4 members of this council, they were to hold office for 5 years. The tenure of these 4 members was 5 years. 5 years. And they had to act on the majority basis. They had to act as majority basis. The all important matter to be decided by the majority opinion of the council. The Governor General was bound to accept the majority decision of the council. That was like the position of the president in India, you may say. He did not possess any overriding right. In case of equality of votes in the council, he exercised his casting vote. The names of the Governor General is 4 councillors, like they were, first Governor General was Warren Hastings. That was the first Governor General of Bengal, and There were 4 members. Name of those 4 members are Philip Francis, Monson, Borwell and Clavering. You may note it down here. First person was Clavering. Clavering. That's the most sincere person. He had wished to act as Governor General. Clavering. Borwell. Philip Francis. And Monson, General Monson. And they had great contradiction with Governor General. Three of these 4 members, they got one side. As you know, Borwell was not ex. You may say the previous. You may say that was he had been the subordinate person. He had the subordinate officer to Warren Hastings. So he always sided the Warren Hastings. So what this body got, what right was given to this body? That was to right to make law. Right to make law. These 4 members and Governor General, this body was given a right to make law for Bengal and the people of, the people of Calcutta. So there was not so differences. So now we finish this session here, and that was the part 1. We'll discuss part 2 tomorrow. To make, by making law, this act now comes to end. And thank you for being with me. We'll meet tomorrow. Thank you so much.